Has working so closely with your child on schoolwork these last couple of months made you more aware of how much they're struggling? You know, smart kids find ways to compensate, and they may have been able to mostly cover their struggles in school. But we're hearing from more and more distressed parents who had no idea just how difficult attention, reading, comprehension, or executive function skills were for their child. This is LD Expert Live, your place for answers and solutions for learning disabilities, dyslexia, and attention challenges. We're live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm your host, author, and founder of Stowell Learning Centers, where we help children and adults permanently change their learning and attention challenges. And by the way, I'm Jill Stowell, forgot to mention my name. Today, Lauren Ma, the director of Stowell Learning Center in Irvine, California, is going to be joining me to answer your questions and talk about one of the biggest challenges that parents are seeing right now with their kids during this pandemic. Before I bring her in, I want to introduce you to Maddie, one of our amazing clinical staff. You may recognize Maddie as the star of some of our Facebook Live video tips for parents.
Hi.
And there she is. Hi, Maddie.
Hi, happy to be here. So today we're going to be doing a question and answer. So go ahead and leave your questions. We're here to answer your questions. Leave them in the comments. We'll be answering them. And also just say hi. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to know who's here.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you, Maddie. And welcome, Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Lauren has... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I hope
Lauren
everybody had a great weekend.
Lauren has been doing a lot of speaking to parent groups recently about executive function, and it has been a really hot topic. Right now, kids are in a position where they have to be more independent with their schoolwork, but parents are finding that they really are not. So, Lauren, what is going on when you've got a smart child and you give them good strategies, but it's just not working?
Right. I mean, this is what we're hearing so much of right now from our parents, that they're having to basically be the teacher or be the student right along with their child right now. And really, I mean, it's what we've been saying all along with our message. And I want to bring up the learning skills continuum, because that is the answer. Basically, if you've been to a parent night, if you know us, if you've worked with us, you know this is the learning skills continuum. If you haven't, I'll explain briefly kind of what it's showing. Basically what happens is schools and functioning kind of traditional academics are there at the top with the orange and the red. That's kind of where students are expected to perform academically, even at a very basic level. When kids enter kindergarten, they're expected to work right there in the orange with basic academic skills, starting to learn how to read and how to write and how to spell and how to do math. But there's all these other underlying skills that are kind of hidden, that schools aren't expected to teach and can get in the way when students are kind of faced in the situations that they're faced right now, where they're having to learn independently so much on their own. So how it's organized, it goes from the bottom to the top, and the lower level skills, starting at core learning skills in the green, are kind of your basic movement and functioning skills. That's where attention is housed. Up a little bit higher is processing skills, memory, visual processing, auditory processing. A little bit higher, this is the hot one right now, executive function, that helps you to be independent and to reason, to strategize, to think ahead, to understand concepts of time and adhere to deadlines. That's executive function. That is where our kids are being stressed right now, is the executive function level. And all of those underlying skills, the green, the blue, and the purple, are supporting the orange and the red, where our kids are having to function in school with basic academic skills, and then also with higher content as soon as kids get into specialty subjects like algebra and earth science. So I'm going to talk about each of the underlying skills. That's where we work. That is our specialty. It's something that we know. I know it like the back of my hand, these underlying skills. And it really solves this mystery for parents of why, they were getting by okay in school. And now that we're doing this online learning, why is everything starting to fall apart? And why do I feel like the student too? Why do I feel like I'm in the fourth grade? Is what a lot of our parents are saying. Well, and I'll try to unravel some of that for you. So let's look at core learning skills first. That's the green. And ooh, there it is. Look at that. So core learning skills are foundational skills. They start developing even before babies are born in utero, beginning with reflexes. And that's something that's housed in the brainstem. And so this is the way that we navigate and we start to learn about our world. And so things like basic visual skills, basic auditory skills, attention skills, motor movements, coordination, all of that. That's how we're organized. That's how our little bodies are organized and how we start to navigate our world. There is a huge connection between core learning skills, even though they are so low and so primitive in the brain, and higher level executive function skills, because these skills helped us to organize our world. They help us to make sense of what's out there and how to view and to organize kind of what we see around us and what we experience around us. And so think about what our kids are having to do now with online learning. So they're having to sit in a chair. Some kids, depending on your school, I've heard of some schools doing, they spend 6 hours in the classroom. All right, we're doing 6 hours of Zoom. What? That means they have to sit in a chair and look at a screen all day long and have really good regulation and attention skills, which are housed at that core learning level. They're having to manipulate a mouse or having to manipulate a cursor and look at the screen. And so that involves some hand-eye coordination that might not be there. They're having to engage with the screen. It's not the same as when you're in a classroom and you're getting a lot of sensory input around you. Just even having to sit and having to do stationary work for an extended period of time, depending on a child's developmental age, that might not be developmentally appropriate. So it's really taxing those core learning skills. And so this is why when we work with our kiddos, we are doing remote sessions. And when we work with our kiddos, we make movement a big part of that. And so we're addressing those core learning issues as we work with our students. We get them to get up, take breaks, take movement breaks, integrate their brains. So core learning skills, it is the thing that is kind of being overlooked with online learning because the focus is so much on curriculum and on the actual work getting done. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit higher into processing skills. That is the blue. Processing skills are higher in the brain. They are a set of skills that nobody taught you how to have a memory. Nobody taught you how to have processing speed. It's your attention focus, your visual processing, your auditory processing. So not the way that you see, not the physical act of seeing or hearing, but the way your brain processes information it gets through the ears or through the eyes. This is kind of an innate set of skills that are just supposed to be there to support you in order to process information and respond appropriately. Again, if something is going on at this level, that could interrupt online learning. If the child has issues with memory or with attention focus, they're on the computer all day, and it is really tempting to have 50 tabs open and to be multitasking all the time. That's kind of, and it pulls from executive function, maybe not the ideal way to learn. I said memory. If there's an issue with auditory processing and they're not getting good auditory information via the computer, information is going to be lost. Visual processing, I talked about it before. They're on a screen all day. If there's issues with understanding, where do I look? What am my teacher's talking, but I see all my classmates. I don't know what's going on. There could be interferences with learning there. So processing skills definitely can be impacting, and the reason why online learning can be so difficult for a lot of our kids with attention and learning challenges right now. Let's go a little bit higher with executive function. This is the big one. Okay, purple, executive function skills. These are a unique set of skills on the learning continuum, in that some of them are innate. As we develop and get older, we employ some of these skills. We have the ability to reason. We have the ability to think ahead. But it's also learned behaviors that we've developed through our process of trial and error. So a lot of times, with our kids that are in the classroom, they've kind of become accustomed to some routines, to different times of day when, oh, it's time for this, and now the entire class is moving on. Now they're left on their own, and they may not have that set of skills. Time orientation, their Zoom classes at 10 a.m. Well, now it's up to the parent to get them online, because there's no other tools to help them know what time math class is, like there was when they were in the classroom, things like that. So this is a unique set of skills. It means that if they're not in place, that is why and when parents are being called in to do a lot of the substitution for these skills. They're filling in the gaps because our kids don't have it. And it's not necessarily the child's fault. It's not at all, actually. So it usually is because these skills have not been developed, or they haven't had to use these skills before with their previous learning. So reasoning, self-monitoring their attention, we're getting a lot of parents that are saying, he doesn't want to learn. He's not motivated. Yeah, I mean, all of the benefits of being in the classroom have kind of been removed. The social implications, the praise from the teacher, things like that. Yeah, motivation is going to be impacted, and that is going to negatively impact executive function skills. So those set of skills right there, that is where we do the majority of our work. And then also address the basic academic skills. But if there is any kind of interference occurring at any of those lower levels, you are going to see challenges academically, functionally, with behavior and attention. This is a really hard time for parents. I didn't touch on the orange and the red. That's basically where interventions with schools happen. So tutoring, or sometimes accommodations, modifications, IEP services are occurring at the orange and the red. Right now, our parents are providing intervention in the orange and the red, and sometimes in the executive function, definitely right now. And that's the stress that's happening, is because you can spin your wheels just providing intervention at those top levels if the underlying skills are not addressed. And Jill, that's what we work with every single day, and we know this, and it's so innate to us. And I forget that sometimes because schools don't address those underlying skills, not everybody knows, and that is why it's so frustrating. Despite a child's intelligence, despite a parent's beautiful routine and system, there can still be a lot of frustration occurring right now.
Absolutely. And sometimes, it feels like, well, if I just tell them, well, you're supposed to do this, or put a reminder in your phone, or use this folder, or whatever strategy we've come up with, we think, well, I gave them a good strategy. They should be able to do this. Mm-hmm. But if any of those underlying skills are weak or inefficient, as you said, it could impact their ability to actually get that information when you tell them, if there's an auditory issue, or, just having a strategy doesn't do the job if you don't have the underlying supports in place to allow you to use it. So, that continuum is really the foundation of our work, because we want to get at the root of the learning problem, not just the symptoms that are so evident in the classroom, but we want to get at the root so that we can permanently change that. If you're just joining us, this is LD Expert Live. I'm Jill Stowell, founder of Stowell Learning Centers, here with Lauren Ma, the director of our Irvine California Center. We're talking about critical underlying skills that support executive function, learning, and attention. And we're here to answer your questions today. I'm sure a lot of you have questions for Lauren. So let's dive into our Q&A.
All righty. Well, hi. So just want to say hi to some people that have said hi. So hello, Kathy. Good to have you. And our first question. So Jennifer, she brings up interesting points. She has a son, obviously very smart in lots of honors classes, but definitely struggling with the workload right now. And, you know, as an educator, this is hard for her to see. So any thoughts on that for students super smart, but maybe with some executive functioning ADHD issues?
So we see kids like this all the time. I mean, this is the majority of our population. You have a highly intelligent child. This is not an intelligence problem at all. And so a lot of times the skills that got them into honors classes, the intelligence, the ability to take a test, a lot of times these kids can show up the day of the test and just ace it because they have really good reasoning skills. That is completely separate from having a learning or attention issue when there are underlying skills getting in the way. And so the workload, because the supports that were in place, I suppose, when kids are in school, the dialogue that happens in the classroom, the engagement, things like that, a lot of kids were able to do okay when they were doing traditional school. And now that we've moved to an online platform and all that's required of them is to do a bunch of work, it takes a superior level of executive function skills in order to get that done. So what's happening to our kids is like the demands have changed complete 180. And now they're relying on skills that are weak and that have always been weak, but kind of were masked because the situation has changed with school. So if he has executive function issues, if he's always had difficulty turning things in on time or staying, up to date with his work and knowing what's due, things like that, it's probably compounded even way more right now because that's all school looks like to him. He's probably logging into his portal at school, or maybe he's forgetting to, and everything's assigned there, but that's not innate to him. It's not something that comes naturally. So he does need, what I say when kids do struggle with executive function, there needs to be an external regulator, and that is unfortunately the parent right now. Unless you're working with someone else to help him get in and establish some good routines, because this is not ideal. Even when kids are in school and they struggle with these executive function skills, there needs to be somebody to show them how to implement some of these tools and strategies, or else it's not going to come naturally.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I have a couple of other thoughts that came to mind when you were talking about this, Lauren. You talked about how when you're in school, there are routines and things in place that kind of cue kids as to what they're supposed to do. And a student, you can have an honors student who has a reading problem. And I know that feels like it doesn't make sense, but some of our kids who actually struggle to read have such good comprehension, and they're smart kids. So when they sit in class, they can gain enough information that when they have to go do their assignments, they can fill in the gaps. But right now, that student is having to do virtually all of that independently. And that puts a much greater demand on their ability to gain the information from the page. And so, there are all kinds of issues that could be getting in the way. Now, this particular question was saying her child is ADD and just really having trouble with the workload. And so one of the things I would, definitely do would be to sit down with him and kind of dialogue together how much time he feels like he really can focus. And then, break up the school day. I mean, do it together, but actually schedule it out. Break up the school day into chunks where he has a good enough break in between. You know, in high school, kids move from class to class, and that's a nice physical break because they move their bodies, they separate their mind from it because they've got their friends around. And so, you know, sitting in front of the computer all day, it's kind of like, oh, well, let's just get all this done and then you'll be done. But he needs to chunk it up and have some space in there where he can move, where he can mentally separate and then come back.
And Lauren, you brought up a really good point about how the parent does have to kind of be that external force right now. And I've had a lot of my parents of teenagers ask, like, how involved should I be? Like, do I need to be checking, you know, their school website every single day and making sure they're staying on top of everything? Or should I kind of give them some space to learn how to do it on their own? Any thoughts on that?
Here's the thing. If these executive function skills are missing, yes, you do need to be on them and check it. You can't expect this to miraculously evolve overnight. These are not skills that, oh, because he's intelligent, therefore this is going to come naturally to him. So yes, unfortunately, it does take someone else, and I call them external regulators. So whether it's parent, whether we're working with a lot of kids right now and teaching them those strategies and teaching them to make those connections, that does need to be in place, or else it's not going to organically just happen on its own.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Dolly brings up an interesting question. I mean, we've talked mostly about, you know, teenagers, but she has an 8-year-old. So any tips there about kind of helping a younger kid start to learn how to maybe complete some of their assignments independently?
So really with younger kids, I mean, here's the thing, they're younger, they're supposed to move. They need to be up. That's part of the developmental process of being 8, is there needs to be movement throughout the day, and that's okay. And so if she's having difficulty with motivation or turning things in on time, I mean, I feel like that's natural. I think that even the expectation that a teacher has to do work independently and to submit it online on time without those routines that are in a classroom. 8 can be 2nd or 3rd grade, and I taught 2nd grade. That's kind of embedded when you're in a classroom and it's not there anymore. So definitely working with your child. I mean, the younger your child is and the more independent work they're expected to do right now, the more involved a parent does need to be. I would say that the first strategy would be to embed movement breaks throughout the day so that attention and motivation can kind of be kept up throughout the day. Nobody, I mean, we're all doing, you know, online meetings and things like that. I mean, and it's exhausting. Nobody wants to be sitting in front of a screen for 6 hours straight. So that's the first thing, making your own routine if it's not already provided for her, so that she's getting up, she has something to look forward to, she can take breaks where she's up and moving her body and going outside, things like that. And then second, yes, coming up with a schedule or routine, making it visual, putting it up on a whiteboard or putting it up somewhere. You can get markers that even you can write on windows, that we've used with some kids just because it's different and it's you know, it's not routine. And so putting a daily schedule so that she can easily visually follow. And then you are going to have to check in on some things. It's not going to be completely independent. Giving her a very specific task to do. So you're going to do this math website sheet assignment, and then after 15 minutes, then I'm going to come and check it, not during, so I don't have to sit next to you the entire time. But coming up with like a routine where you are going to need to help her and provide some support, but it's not a crutch, is my best advice.
Yeah. And, you know, I was thinking about, there are some kids, whether they're in remote learning or not, that have a tremendous amount of difficulty staying on task. So maybe your child can focus for 5 minutes and then they're off thinking about other things. Well, wherever the child is, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, if they're struggling with focus, one of the things that you can do is use a timer, not to time them, not to put that kind of pressure on, but to say, we're going to focus on this for 5 minutes. And all of your attention is on this for 5 minutes. But when that timer goes off, you're going to stop for a second. So if that's all your child can focus, 5 minutes, great. Go after 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, high five, set the timer again, do another 5 minutes. What it does is it helps them to start to build up an understanding of what it feels like to be really focused. They get to celebrate every 5 minutes. They get that tiny little break. And over time, you can build that up. So, and Lauren is right. Once we put that timer on, if it's 15 minutes or whatever the amount of time, it's not to say, get this done in this amount of time, but the goal is to keep your focus there for that amount of time. And I'm going to let you do that all on your own. And then we'll be back, and I'll be back to check in, and we'll celebrate. So the timer kind of brings you back in to check, but it also gives them a finite amount of time that they have to really keep their focus up.
Yeah, really good point. And I think Sue had a question more about our programs. She was kind of wanting to know a little bit more about the connection between executive function and underlying neurological development. So is that something you could speak on?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're asking is that if we're doing executive function training, does that deal neurologically with some of the processing skills, or is that basically brain-based training? And I would absolutely. I mean, here's the thing with whenever you do executive function training, it cannot just be, oh, I'm going to take you to this person, they're going to give you a bunch of strategies. That's not executive function training. That's a helper. that's a guide. That's something like that. That is not going to make it lasting, permanent connection. And when we do our work, that is what our goal is. It's to actually change the brain to develop new skills so that the individual can become independent and comfortable learning at their level and their ability. So yes, so a lot of times our executive function training looks like a combination. Actually, all of our training is a combination of really working on those underlying skills and bringing in the higher level academics, or the at the top of the continuum, working on the academics simultaneously. The same could be said for executive function training. We might be working on executive function skills, but also addressing some of the lower level processing skills that might be getting in the way as well, because we want this to be a permanent change for your child. And it's just not effective to work on skills kind of in a splintered type of way. Oh, I'm just going to give you a strategy. Oh, we're just going to use a planner. Oh, it doesn't work kind of in isolation. It has to be a whole process. And that's why it takes time, it takes commitment, but it is a lasting change for the child. That's our ultimate goal.
Exactly.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because we end up developing new neural pathways. The brain is amazing. And with intensive and targeted training, it can do that. And so thank you, Lauren. That was a great explanation of that.
And actually going along with that, Leanne has a really good question. She was wanting to know kind of the relationship between the executive function skills and how that can kind of play into reading comprehension and writing skills.
So saying, do executive function skills affect reading and comprehension? I would actually say it's the other way around. So, I mean, they do support each other, definitely. But a lot of times, if there is a comprehension issue, it is going to impact executive function, because the individual has difficulties maybe seeing things from multiple perspectives, has difficulty with mental flexibility. Those are all skills that support comprehension. And therefore, they're also going to impact executive function skills as well. So there is a strong connection. Writing skills, think of all the skills that are involved with writing. So you have to have really good internal organization, to think about a topic, to systematically kind of lay out your thoughts. You have to be able to simultaneously process, like, okay, I'm thinking, I'm comprehending, and language processing. This is how I'm going to explain myself. You have to have, with good writing skills, you have to have good like self-awareness and editing. So I'm going to read this over. I'm going to have the executive function skills to read this over and edit my work, or I'm going to go take it to somebody else and ask them to edit it for me, and I'm going to take that feedback and then revise. That's all part of the writing process. And so yes, they are strongly related. And again, like lower comprehension issues can affect executive function. Executive function issues can affect writing and what the product looks like in the outcome. So absolutely.
You know, one of the things that is a strong underlying skill that impacts both executive function and comprehension is the ability to visualize. And, you know, if you think about your own schedule, you can probably picture your calendar in your mind. You're using visualization to plan, to organize. So our executive function uses that visual inner language all the time. And we use our verbal inner language because we kind of talk it through in our mind. Well, comprehension, reading comprehension is like that. We can't possibly remember every single word on the page, but we can turn those words into images. And that's how we begin to remember and comprehend and see how everything fits together. So absolutely, executive function and reading comprehension are connected in some of those underlying skills.
Yeah, and Kathy does bring up a good question here. Basically, she's noticing that sometimes the teacher might cater to a specific learning style. So any tips for when you feel like your child maybe needs a different learning style? How can you best support them?
So, and I don't know how old her daughter is, but this is something, unfortunately, that does happen a lot. We can't control the classroom. We can't control teachers. Our kids do learn differently. And teachers, wherever they are kind of in their teaching process, they tend to, have a style. I did when I was a teacher. But it is delicate because, like, as a parent, sometimes you feel like, oh, can I step in on their domain, and can I make a suggestion? And some teachers are open to it and some aren't. So I definitely understand that struggle. Also, if you do have a child with a learning or attention issue, they are going to need information delivered to them differently. And so they're not going to learn in maybe a traditional sense. And so that is the unfortunate part, is that yes, eventually we want our kids to get to a point where they are comfortable, independent learners, that no matter what the modality is, whether it's a teacher in the 4th grade or whether it's college, and maybe that teacher does not have the best teaching style, that they are still able to be flexible and still learn under those conditions. It might take, more executive function skills on the student's part in order to get by, but they're still able to do that. That is our goal, because we cannot control our environment. For right now, depending on, kind of the your relationship with the teacher, I would definitely say something, even if it's, my child has a learning issue or an attention issue, and right now she is really struggling to get all the information. Could you this? Or asking the teacher perhaps to even provide some of the notes or the reading selections ahead of time, so that you can work with your child at home and prep her if the teacher is not able to be flexible and kind of adjust. But that is usually one of the consequences of having weak underlying skills, is that all of a sudden the conditions are not ideal and the child can't adapt. And so that's why this work is really important, because eventually you can't control all situations.
And going along with that, with just students who, which is a lot of our students who aren't getting exactly what they need online, I've seen with some students that, this is kind of bringing out an anger with them because things are so hard. Yeah. So do you have any suggestions for parents who are finding that their kids are actually angry because of what's going on?
They're feeling like it's not fair. The kids are. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not. I mean, here's the thing, and let's be honest, it's not fair. It's not fair to, even neurotypical kids that don't have learning and attention challenges. This isn't ideal for anyone right now. And they've missed a lot of opportunities. They miss their friends. And so acknowledging that, I'm not a psychologist, but I would just say as a mom myself, just being okay with the fact that yeah, this is hard right now. And so we're going to work to help you and to help our family get through this. So even more so, a need for routine, for structure, for strategies, things like that. But the anger is coming from a loss of control and from things not being fair. And so again, depending on your relationship with your child's teacher, I mean, just going to them and asking for grace can go far, because teachers are human. They're under a lot of stress right now. They're trying to teach remotely. This is not how any of us in teacher education were taught how to teach. So it's not ideal for anyone. And so there is a lot of stress, but maybe going to the teacher and saying, is there anything we can do to cut down on the workload, or provide the notes ahead of time so that I can preview it with her, things like that, to help to reduce the frustration.
And you said something I think that's really important there at the beginning of that we just need to acknowledge where they are. I mean, it's a legitimate feeling, as frustrating as it is and as hard as it is to deal with when they're refusing to do things. We need to start by acknowledging where they are. I get that you're angry about this because it doesn't seem fair. Then you can start to dialogue in at a time when they're not all worked up, how you can begin to deal with it. If you're just joining us, I'm Jill Stowell, founder of Stowell Learning Centers, and I'm here with Lauren Ma, director of our Irvine California Center. Isn't she amazing? Thank you, Lauren, for all of that incredible information. We are talking about executive function and whatever is on your mind today, and we will be back to our Q&A in a bit. As we have been helping parents navigate this time of quarantine and homeschooling, we're finding that not only are you concerned about your child's education, but many of you are worried that you aren't doing it right. And so first of all, I just want to give a huge shout out to all of you parents who are schooling your kids, because you are amazing. And second, because you do feel a little inadequate or overwhelmed right now, you are actually in a unique position to understand your child's struggles kind of from the inside out. Kids who have learning or attention challenges often feel like they're not smart or not capable. They feel like they're messing up all the time and letting everybody down. You probably understand that. I mean, in fact, most parents do, because kids don't come with instruction sheets and we make a lot of mistakes along the way. So this is a great opportunity for you to sit down together and explore the fact that everybody has things that they're really good at and things that are challenging. And specifically in relation to the challenges that you're running into right now, this is a great time to problem solve together with your kids. Before March, I imagine you were probably managing everything because you were running everywhere, trying to get kids to different schools and to all their activities and get homework done. And now you're all home. So take the time that you didn't have before and problem solve together. Together, identify and label the challenge. Maybe it's managing everybody's virtual school time, or maybe it's your child's disorganization, or like one of the questions that we had, maybe it's you've got this really smart kid who cannot manage the workload. Whatever the problem is, instead of taking that burden on yourself to figure it all out and then manage it together, come up with possible solutions. So maybe you just brainstorm together and you write down every single solution. It doesn't matter how crazy it is. And then together, start eliminating and come up with, decide what is going to be the best solution to try right now. And then everyone commit to trying it. Maybe you commit to trying it for 3 days or a week. And then you revisit it and evaluate. Did it work? Is there anything we need to change? And then commit to trying it again. You know, you being a little bit vulnerable and walking through this process together helps your children feel better about themselves. And for teens in particular, being a part of the problem-solving process gives them ownership and buy-in, which is really critical because they want to be independent, even if they're not quite ready to be. And this process builds executive function because this is exactly what our executive function does. And I think, you know, in our very, very busy world, especially the world when we were out there running around being busy, for a lot of us, we just felt like we had to micromanage everything or we couldn't fit in all the pieces of the puzzle. And so we got to exercise our executive function, but our kids didn't get practice using theirs. So taking the time to problem solve some of these things together in a nice, quiet, objective time of day, not in the middle of a confrontation, because at that time, nobody's in their rational brain, but taking the time to problem solve together is giving your kids a chance to really exercise their executive function, which will serve them for their entire life. So let's get back to our Q&A. Hey, Maddie.
Hi, I'm back. I really like the points you made about taking the time to problem solve together. I think that's awesome. And I've definitely had some parents kind of express that they can't help but get frustrated with their child right now. And, you know, they feel bad about that for sure. So I think those are really good suggestions. Sue actually brings up a really good point, which is a unique perspective. I'll take this down in a second, but she's seen that the quality of her child's work has actually improved just because they have more time to work on these things. And so she's kind of asking if the independence that he's gained possibly be retained into the fall if things were to go back to normal.
You know, that is really true. For some of our students, it has actually been better for them because there are fewer distractions. What I would suggest is just to make sure that together with your child, you really look at the independence that he's gained. I mean, not only validate it, because you really want to validate it, but also look at things that he's doing differently. Dialogue together, not just tell him, but say, hey, you are so independent with your math now. How are you thinking about it? What are you doing to be independent? Wow, that's going to be a great tool for you to use when you go back to school in the fall. So just calling attention to it, validating it, and getting the child to verbalize what it is that they're doing will help to kind of cement those new habits and that new learning.
For sure. And I know something that a lot of parents have been asking too is kind of, what am I supposed to do with my kids all summer? I don't know, if things were to continue to be under the stay-at-home order, any suggestions for that?
Well, we are heading into summer, and it is certainly going to look different this year. Just in general, and Lauren may have some ideas about this too, because she is a parent of a young child. In general, because kids are maybe not going to be able to be out and summer camp and all of that, it would be fun to find to dialogue together, a fun project they could do. When my son was, I don't know, I think he was maybe 11, he and his buddy decided that they were going to build a clubhouse. And they got my brother, who works in construction engineer, and he drew up some plans for them. And then they figured out what they needed, and they decided how much, they checked out what it would cost. And they spent the entire summer building a clubhouse that they never, ever used, but it was a whole lot of fun for them. And so it might be fun to just kind of look at your child's interests and come up with some kind of creative project that they could put a lot of mental energy into and have fun doing it.
Yeah, I would definitely say. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Lauren. This is the thing with these remote Facebook Live things. We'll talk over each other. I would definitely say, absolutely, this is a time to explore that creativity that so many of our kids have. They have that gift of creativity that during the school year kind of gets glossed over because we're just running like around to appointments, all day long, and school and homework and, soccer practice and violin practice and things like that. And so sometimes that creativity is stifled. And definitely for our like dyslexic learners, for our creative right brain thinkers, they need that outlet. And this is the perfect time to explore that. So building and designing and baking and things like that, where they can be in control of something and create something, from themselves is a great time to really reignite some passions and to kind of get our kids out of that learning funk that sometimes traditionally we always see kids go through in the springtime. And this year it's not happening. I mean, there's a funk, but it's not related to the school year. It's just kind of, it's related to what everybody's going through right now. But definitely something like creativity, designing and coming up with my daughter loves maps, which is odd, but and because she's 4, and so we got her 3 different atlases, and she's like planning all these trips. She knows that this one TV show she loves is filmed in New Zealand, and so she keeps talking about when she goes to New Zealand and she's going to go see Power Rangers, and so things like that have a connection to their world, but using learning to kind of as a way to bridge that gap. This is the perfect time to do that.
It really is. And I was thinking, that's so funny that you said that about her planning little trips, because most people probably won't be traveling this summer the way that they typically do. And so maybe your child gets to plan a virtual trip and, put together pictures and do a little research and then take their family on a trip and show them all the cool things. We're gonna all have to get creative.
Definitely. And going along with more of that fun social aspect, Bernice has a question. She actually says that her son is doing really well with remote learning. So yay, that's awesome. She kind of clarified a little bit about her question. She's saying that he really misses his friends and he's an only child. So I don't know, any suggestions for how to kind of incorporate more of that social element?
That is tough. Right now I have an only child, and she definitely is hurting for that social attention. I mean, taking advantage of technology right now. I mean, doing FaceTime, doing group, even she has an online dance class. And so that is done via Zoom. And so just being on and seeing her teacher and knowing that there's all these little other little 4-year-olds kind of in the class, because at the end they'll show like, here's who's here. And that alone is exciting for her. As we do start to get out, just going out and being in, when I say public places, like an open space, like the park or the beach, places where you can't have social distancing, but there are people around, is what these social kiddos do need. They need to see other people. Going for walks. I see a lot of neighborhoods. Our neighborhood is doing a bear hunt. So they're putting teddy bears in the windows, and then you take your child on a walk and you're going on a bear hunt, and you're seeing how many teddy bears you can find on your bear hunt. They did something for Easter. We did Easter eggs in the windows, things like that. Sidewalk chalk, making murals for neighbors to walk by and see. So there's a lot of like community ideas. So, even going on to Facebook, going to your community Facebook page and seeing what the community is doing would be a great time to take advantage of that.
Nice. I want to live in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think those are all the questions that we've gotten so far. So if you're listening and you have anything in the back of your minds and you want to hear Lauren and Jill's opinion, we'd love to hear your questions. So you can still leave those. We have some more time.
Well, how are we doing? Yes, go ahead and put up other questions if you have them. If we don't get to them, we will make sure that we post answers to them. But thank you, everyone, for the great questions that you have put up. This is LD Expert Live. I'm Jill Stowell. I've been here with Lauren Ma. And Lauren, we are heading into summer at Stowell Learning Centers as well. And of course, it will look different because we always have this camp-like atmosphere and themes and all kinds of cool things. And it won't be exactly the same, but we are still doing intensive sessions. We're finding ways to make it fun. What are you just dying to tell parents about this summer?
So, I mean, this summer it looks different for everyone right now. I will say that the silver lining to kind of the state that our country is in right now is where people aren't traveling as much. We're not able to, make big plans that previously kind of got in the way of our summers. So this is an ideal time for our kids with learning and attention issues to kind of catch up. The beauty of this time right now is that all kids in school their education is suffering. I mean, to put it mildly. And so what we've seen with our kids doing remote sessions is they're actually catching up. They're bridging that gap with learning because they're working with their clinician. Even though they're doing remote sessions, they're really valuable and they're able to build these skills in this time where their peers that might not have learning or attention issues are not getting that input and that development. And so now is a really good time to do intensive work, to really work intensively this summer, close that gap so that they go back to school, whatever mode we end up going back to school. We're hearing, some schools are going to go back traditionally, some schools are going to have a hybrid of still remote learning, but that their skills are stronger. And so that is, it's like, yay, yeah, one for the kids with learning and attention challenges. They got the one up this time because they're working hard all summer. And so our intensives, I mean, we are doing them differently. Traditionally, we would have kids come into the center and they would work with a different clinician every hour. And so we can do that remotely, and they might be working on a team, but they're getting that feedback and that interaction with their clinician, and that relationship is been amazing. I mean, we've just had parents raving about, like, you are the constant in my child's life. Thank you so much. And so it's just a really good time to be working on those things. I mean, if not this summer, then when?
Right. Thank you, Lauren. This this time of COVID-19 and all the restrictions, it's tough and we're all getting kind of tired of it. So I think you're right. I think we have to be looking for those silver linings. And as Lauren said, having this time this summer to help your child build the skills they need to close the gap and feel confident and really feel good about themselves about a learner is one of the positive outcomes. This is LD Expert Live, your place for answers and solutions for learning disabilities, dyslexia, and attention challenges. We are live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Next Tuesday, we will be talking to special education attorney Tim Adams about how to advocate for your child in the post-COVID-19 era. I think a lot of parents are feeling pretty lost right now as to what they should expect from special education and what they're supposed to do. So I'm really excited to have Tim here to answer your questions and to be a resource for our families. So be sure and join us next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And Maddie and Lauren, let's check back in just to see if we have any additional questions that came through.
Yeah. Sue has a good question, kind of in terms of our long-term success with our students. So she wants to know, have we kept in touch with some of these students who have, graduated, and how have they been doing?
So yes, I mean, I usually it's up to the parent. They contact us. We've had a couple on these shows, parents that of kids that I've worked with, that our team has worked with, and they've been checking in, and it's just been amazing to hear from parents saying, my kid's in college now. He never would have got there if it wasn't for you. And so we do try to keep up with our families because, like I said, it is a really close relationship that families develop with their clinicians. And so the parents that do check in with us and let us know, I mean, yes, the skills are there and the child is able to take those skills and go on and be independent and comfortable in their learning environment. And so usually we hear from parents when they graduate, we get the graduation announcements for high school. And when, we get to know what college they're going to, that's usually when we hear from parents, is when a child's getting ready to go off to college. So if you're one of those parents and your child was with us, even if it was 20 years ago, let us know. That makes us so proud when we get to hear from past students and hear about their successes.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, I have been in business a really, really long time. This is going on 36 years for us now. And so it is just an incredible joy to hear from our parents. And we don't hear from every parent, but we've heard from a lot of parents over the years, and our kids who were struggling so much in school became independent learners and graduated with honors and went to college and did higher degrees and became professors or doctors or pharmacists, teachers, and just having the kind of future, the kind of life that their parents dreamed for them to have. And then those learning and attention challenges when they got into school kind of got in the way. But once those were dealt with, they were able to go on and have the kind of future, that they should have. So yes, we've been at this a long time, and we hear from a lot of our parents, and we are so thrilled when we do. And it has the kind of long-term impact that we aim for with every student.
Nice. And we just actually have a comment from Deborah. So she just wants to thank, I know we're like, oh, yeah, she wanted to express that, how much she likes the show and providing, balanced information and how important collaboration is. So she just wanted to express that.
We love Deborah Ann from OC Chad. So the ADHD support group here in Orange County. So thank you, Deborah Ann. She's the expert. She does a problem-solving behavior group too. So she would
and
know.
a tremendous amount of work with collaboration between kids and parents and any professionals that they're working with, so that kids really do develop the executive function skills they need and feel like a part of the process. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, our guest next week is special education attorney Tim Adams, and he'll be talking to you about how to advocate for your child in the post-COVID-19 era. He'll answer questions that you have about special education. So be sure to join us at 10 a.m. Stowell Learning Centers are open. We're doing remote screenings, remote sessions. New students are joining us from all around the world. So if you have a child or teen who struggled with learning or attention or executive function, this may be exactly the right time to build the underlying skills that are at the root of the problem and move your child forward during this time of educational plateau. To speak with someone about your child, call us at 877-774-0444 or visit us online at stowellcenter.com. Thank you so much, Lauren and Maddie, for your insights. Thanks to all of you who have tuned in. We've had over 40,000 views, which is amazing because we want to help as many parents as possible. So thank you so much for sharing. We'll see you next week.